Did you know that 80% of all US dollars were printed in the last 2 years? It went from $4 trillion to 20 trillion in just 22 months. That means about 40% of US dollars in existed were printed in the last 12 months. So why is this a big deal? Well, our inflation rate has hit a 40-year high. Things have gotten more expensive. You feel it, don't you? Food prices in the US are expected to increase 5% in the first half of 2022 alone. Gas is costing more, with the price per barrel of oil hitting $122 in March of 2022. Credit card debt is increasing during the last 3 months of 2021 at the largest quarterly rate in the 22-year history since it was being recorded. Mortgage rates have increased. Inflation warnings from Fed Chair Jerome Powell sent mortgage rates soaring recently. With continued disruptions in supply chain, shelves are bare. You can tell energy prices are going up, and it's true of crude oil, natural gas, and we see the impact on inflation. The Eurozone economy is exposed with the conflict that we're facing in the Ukraine, and irrespective of how governments respond, the extended disruption is going to be significant. We also see college tuition continues to cost more for each of our students and universities, irrespective of where they go to school. So national universities that were looked at in 2022 of the best colleges in the US, they found that the average tuition and fees at a private national university jumped 144%. Out-of-state tuition and fees at public national universities also have risen 171%. In-state tuition and fees at public national universities have grown the most, increasingly an amazing 211%. It's no wonder that young people are graduating from college with debt that they cannot afford to service, with jobs that don't pay them enough to service the debt. There are 3 reasons that cash is no longer king. The year 2020 was a pivotal year for all of us, wasn't it? We had COVID, and COVID came with all of its costs on lives. The masks, the schools, the children, our workplaces, hybrid work, work at home. And then we saw economic uncertainty. People were just not sure of what was going to happen next. Debt and inflation have grown at the national level at an unbelievable rate. Look at the clock, it's ticking, it's growing and growing by the second. The US national debt surpasses $30 trillion. That's amazing. Adding to all of that is the geopolitical uncertainty that we're facing. Ukraine has left us breathless as we watch. We see total cities being devastated, nothing left in the wake of bombs. People are displaced, fires are everywhere, people are working to try and keep something of their city, and yet, one after another, the cities are being turned into rubble. In the midst of that, we hear rumors that the war in Ukraine could escalate. Putin has perhaps designs on expanding even further beyond the Ukraine. And so we see him with his assistants, his lieutenants, his generals, planning where next in the globe should they go. Iran has been building its military might as well. Iraq has been hit. Israel is in heightened preparation. North Korea is testing new ballistic missiles. China is flying planes over Taiwan and warns the West to stay out. Our world has changed drastically. In this geopolitical world, a 7.9% inflation seems almost inconsequential now, doesn't it? Until we realize that in 1971, the US left the gold standard, opening the door to printing money, lots of money. And during the COVID pandemic, the government responded to business closures and the economic shutdown by sending people billions in stimulus checks. All money derived from printing money, lots of money. So today, the US dollar is losing its value and could quickly be replaced as the world currency. Then we could just as well burn our cash. But when you think of it, cash is a relatively new invention in human evolution. From the foundation of human history, survival has centered on connectedness, not cash. People hunted together in groups. They traded for things they needed. It was a barter system. Then we began to work together in groups, on farms, family-owned businesses. We built churches together, houses, barns were raised together. It was important connecting time. When you think back on the old series of pioneers, think of the movie Bonanza or The Little House on the Prairie. Remember how people came together? They were family units living on a farm. They helped each other. They saw neighbors. They reached out and they helped those neighbors. It was a time of connection, and survival and growth was dependent on their ability to connect with one another. We see that with the Amish even today. They spend their time gathering their community to build barns together, don't they? Then we see that connectedness was replaced. We left the family farm and went to the big city where there were big companies and we could make lots of money. It was a place where no one knew where we came from and no one really seemed to care. Individualism set in. And if you think of The Godfather, remember that line where the dad has been to Israel. He wants to live in Israel. Israel turns him down. He gets to South America and he says, "I'll give you $1 million if I can stay here." And the country turned him down. So money was going to buy him his freedom. Then we saw greed that was almost palpable. And we saw that in the movie Wolf of Wall Street. I made $49 million, but it was short of the $3 million a week. And so he was angry and disappointed. And then we hear Gordon Gekko in Wall Street saying, greed is good. We saw power and influence was bought and sold. We see in Jerry Maguire the question, where's the money? In these temples of work, people worked so they could make lots of money, so they could feel like kings and queens sitting on piles of cash. With the cash, they sent their children to elite schools. They bought big, beautiful homes, went on grand vacations, bought expensive cars, and had fabulous marriages. For a time, anyway. And we began to think during that time, I win, you lose. So remember the movie Ford versus Ferrari? The statement was made, but I thought the whole point was to win the race, right? But there were so many things that were going on at different levels with Ford, with the people who were racing, and with Ferrari. And then we see, I do what I want. We heard on Wall Street in the Wall Street movie. And when it's all done, you can just parachute out a rich man. Money is made and lost, is transferred from one to another. The illusion just becomes real. But the problem is there's never enough money, is there? So then we saw in Goldfinger the quest to break into Fort Knox, take all the money that was there. We discovered there's a dark side to cash as people begin to experience broken marriages. Children were on drugs and antidepressants. Inflation began eating up the piles of cash that had been stashed away, and war is destroying everything beautiful. And then a depression follows, a real depression, a bitter depression. And then we begin to ask ourselves, is this all in vain? Is there anything more? Not for those who are bravely willing to connect again. There is more when we connect with families, friends, farms, and our roots. When we're connected, we build, grow, and thrive. Remember in the Justice League, they're thanking for responding so quickly. I've brought you together to fight the dark side. Shouldn't we have a league of our own, they ask? And so they gathered together to fight. In the Avengers, we see a similar story. The world is changing, they say. There is evil, but we also see possibilities. And in Batman, we see there's a lot of cats here. They say there's a lot of people, but we can work together, and together we will defeat the evil. Then remember the delightful Live 8. They taught us that when we come together, we can raise money to solve problems. We know what to do, and we can do it. And they had 3 billion viewers with one message: make poverty history. 5 million lives were saved each year because of their work. Then we've seen brands and products connecting. Remember Legos and the Stranger Things? And then they said, it's time to level up. Wisdom, honesty, courage, generosity. These are our guiding posts. And that was when Legos decided to expand their business by linking up and creating that movie. And then we saw Louis Vuitton and Supreme. They began to look at how could they bring together their beautiful clothing company with skateboarding. And so they began to design a beautiful luxury brand. The collaboration was an example of taking an existing trend and using it to promote not only their own company, but others. And because of that, in 2017, Louis Vuitton saw a 23% increase in their profit. That is what collaboration did for them. And then we saw Cheetos and Forever 21 combining and collaborating to bring products to market, and in order to expand and grow both of their markets. McDonald's and Burger King came together to create a novel opportunity in Argentina. Here were 2 burger companies, and they said, you know what? We need to raise money for childhood cancer. And so for one day only, just in Argentina, all proceeds from Big Back sales were donated. And in an effort to help the cause, Burger King halted Whopper sales for the day in order to increase the McDonald's sales. So when we collaborate, we attract others who are strong. Remember the Live 8? We solve the seemingly impossible, and the Kennedy Space Shuttle effort is one that's seared in our memories of possibilities and of hope. And then we become so much more. Think of what Gandhi did as he worked together to bring independence to his people. Look at Mother Teresa and what she did for the people in Calcutta, Martin Luther King Jr. He brought a new life to the people in the South and changed our whole perspective of how to look at one another. It was a new beginning in our country, a wonderful new beginning. Cash is king? No. Collaboration is king.